Welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club.
As we see a ideally quite fast kick off the start line there.
And we know who is always confident the moment it goes uphill. It's Rebecca Gilson, but she's got her nemesis, Jojo Bauer, in there. So Gilson on the front in the black helmet, Digger Mashani behind it in that gold cap. Then it's Jojo Bauer with the white cap.
What's per kilo coming out of Gilson at the moment? And Jojo Bauer responding up at 7.2. They are really playing cat and mouse, these two, at the front of this race.
Now, Gilson goes hard. 13 watts per kilo we've just seen from Gilson. It was Bauer, puts another dig, and Gilson winds it up. Gilson's now at 7.6 watts per kilo, but Bauer now goes to 9.9. Has Bauer got the beating of Gilson? Gilson has to respond. The gantry is on its way. Bauer is going to kick for the line, and Bauer is going to take it after all.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. We are here for Qualifier Race 1 on the 2nd of October, and thank you for joining me. My name is Emma Martin, and I am here to take you through all of the action. And joining me in the studio today is Matt Payne. Welcome, Matt. Great to have you here. Epic battle last week.
It was an epic battle, and it was really good to watch the fight into the finish. I have to say, it never fails really to entertain when we go into a finals and see everybody who's been battling all month long, all put together and fighting for those team prizes. And then we start the cycle all over again, don't we? We're back here on qualifying, so expecting to see, no doubt, big numbers again.
Yeah, so you're right, Matt. It was a fantastic battle, not just between Gilson and Bauer, as we saw in that rewind last week for that Category 1 win, but there was also some outstanding battles in Category 2 as well. And the course today, it is a really interesting course that we're going to see the race on today. So a 35.6 kilometre course, 440 metres of climbing, but it's a lapped course today, 8.9 kilometre laps, and the women today are going to race over 4 laps. So as you can see from the profile in front of us, it's a hilly lap. There are 4 climbs per lap. 4 laps, yes, that is 16 climbs overall. They're not long, they're not steep.
What are you trying to say about my rubbish maths that I can't do 4 times 4? You're probably right.
Well, I have to say, I'm imagining once this race gets lit and the power goes down, trying to keep track of which climb these women are on today is going to be part of the challenge. We last saw the women race this on Qualifier 3 in September, Matt. And some fantastic riders and teams, and they'll be with us today. Take us through the teams today.
Okay, so of course we have Spartan Obstacles and Las Colombianas and the Strong Girls teams. They are our big 3 teams with Spartan Obstacles really the team to beat. But the finals saw Las Colombianas take that team win in the September finals. They've not been out of the top 3 when they've raced, but good to see them up at the top. Spartan Obstacles in second, and really interesting to see that mix of riders and a lot of riders actually moving up into Category 1. And it's a big race field, isn't it, Emma?
It is indeed. We have 33 riders today in our Category 1 yellow jerseys. In Category 2, Matt, which teams have we got?
So we have our Whooshers team in there. The Whooshers always a strong team. We have Team RT Cycle Zone Ladies 1, the Fitness 10 team, and of course a Team Golden Light in there. And I think for me, really interesting to see how Rona Joy May goes on in that Whooshers squad. Don't forget, of course, though, people like Novelin, Kokona and Hadlock and Olsen in that Cycle Zone 1 team. And, of course, a big squad of riders who are riding individually.
Yeah, so 24 riders on the start sheets in Category 2 and 20 riders on the start sheets in those blue jerseys of Category 3 today. But just one team, Matt, Climber Girls.
Climber Girls with Adriana Barco, Gallego and Ochoa. And the Climber Girls squad, I think, will be looking to take away a top spot here today. don't forget, of course, we've got a lot of new riders in there as well. Some individual riders, people like Erin Poulton in there, Maria Jose Sabala. We've got Apple Clarissa Garcia as well, all lined up down there. We're in with Elizabeth Van Heuling as that clock ticks down time to get the legs winding up to get that acceleration. Who's going to have the pace? Who's going to have the power? Away we go. Qualifier number 1 in October. And already you can see a mass of yellow jerseys kicking off from the line. They start uphill, and this is where it's going to be critical to get into that leading group.
Yeah, so as you say, Matt, today's start right off the line, we go into climb one from 0 kilometres, a 400-metre climb with an average gradient of 3.7%. There is no easing into this race today. It is an absolutely eyeballs out from the gun today.
So here we go, riders coming up to the top of the climb here, Emma. I'm watching this thinking it's going to be very interesting to see who goes in. That shot back here is brilliant, isn't it? It looks back and you can see the scramble to get into this big group with that tail going down off the bridge.
Yes, you can, can't you, Matt? You can see what this first climb has done to this race group, as you can see the stretch in the group as our category 1 riders in those yellow jerseys packed with those category 2 front riders in the green jerseys are really forming what is quite a large group of riders in our first group today on the road.
So category 1 and 2 leaders in front of you on the screen. And Emma, I'm just looking at those numbers and I'm watching where the power's coming down. You're looking at the numbers. They're not going at full attack pace, are they?
No, not at all, Matt. I think we've seen quite a I was almost going to call it a steady roll off the line. You know, we went uphill, but actually this is a huge pack of riders that we can see here. You know, a big pack all putting out. I'm looking at the numbers here on the right hand side of your screen. On the bottom table, you can see the watts per kilo that the riders are putting out alongside their names. So we were looking at 1.4, 2.4, 3.5. The riders are now on climb 2. Climb 2 has come in quick succession after climb 1. In fact, they just keep coming on this course. No, quicker have you gone down one hill, you're going up the next, and the numbers are picking up, but they're not picking up hugely. You know, this is a steady start from this group of racers today.
And we have seen that on the way through. So when I look back and think about the qualifying races that we've had in previous months, and then the finals, I think because you've got that team prize in there as well, that adds that extra bit of incentive to the riders, particularly in category 1. And I think maybe they're a little bit more complacent. They think, well, we can kick on a little bit later, and they're less nervy in the qualifying.
Yeah, so for riders who haven't joined us before, the qualifying races and the qualifying rounds are individual races for individual prize money, as well as giving you a verified finish to qualify for the final round each month, where the team categories and the team prizes come into play. And you're right, Matt, it does give us a different dynamic in racing. We've got 33 riders in category 1 after the top 5 positions. The team dynamics, I was almost going to say they don't play as much central as a role. They no way near light the racing like we see in our finals rounds. But let's not forget, teammates are still teammates, and they do support each other in racing, even if there's not a team prize today.
Well, that is true, and I think that is something to bear in mind, that we're seeing these riders, they're riding individually, but of course they're not necessarily in those teams. But of course, the riders don't see that anyway, because of course we are with our category 1, 2, and 3 category riders, and just see our category 3 riders there on the right hand side there. And I'm looking at that and thinking that climb is tough. And we've got to remember, those average gradients that you see on your screen, they are only averages, and the steeper sections, they really, really hurt. And that pack of riders in category number 3 behind, well, that's going to be a really interesting fight. And that's why I really love riding on MyWhoosh, because there's always somebody to race against. There's always somebody who you could be riding up against, somebody of your ability to go out and ride. And no matter where you are, what time zone you're in the world, there are social rides, there's the Battle of the Bot rides, there's the My whooshers rides, all those different activities where you can jump on there. Never mind the training programs, which are huge as well.
Yeah, let's not forget each of these categories in this Sunday Race Club today offers really good competitive riding and racing for liked grouped riders. You know, these categories are a little fluid. We can see some riders now coming up from category 2 to category 1 this time round for October. So it's great to see the progression of our riders and racing. But that category 3 race that we saw, category 3 race is just as competitive as category 2 and category 1, and gives great opportunities for those riders as well. So it's fabulous to see. In fact, here we are indeed in with Dadson and Madeira and Lenore, Erin Poulton, Jackie Giuliano. You know, this is a group here of our blue jersey racers, our category 3 racers, and look how competitive it is as well. And this is just mirrored across all 3 categories, which is absolutely fantastic to see.
And don't forget, if you want to come and jump in and join on, then make sure you jump onto the MyWhoosh.com website. You can download the app onto a phone, you can download it onto a computer, a laptop. It runs on iOS, on Android, and on PC. So make sure that you download it, jump on, make sure you have a little look at what you need to do if you want to come on and race. That's a bit more in depth, as you'd expect, because having a platform that gives everybody a fighting chance and is very fair is one of the key things about MyWhoosh. So make sure you have a read of that if you want to. But you just want to jump on and just have a ride, come and join us. It's great fun. And don't forget, of course, make sure you tag in everything on social media. So it's MyWhoosh on Facebook, on Instagram, my_whoosh on Twitter. And of course, don't forget, of course, to pop Emma and myself in on the conversation. It's always great to hear what people are up to on MyWhoosh, whether that's training for a triathlon with the new triathlon programs or whether it's out and racing. And Emma, I know you've got a thing for pain caves.
I really do enjoy seeing pictures of where our riders are racing from. So where their turbos, where their bikes are set up. And I really think that's one of the real joys of the fact we see them all on the platform in front of us on the screen. Like we've got these 4 riders in front of us, but these 4 riders are riding from all over the world in very different setups. Some of them will be riding in a country where it is pouring with rain and 8 degrees. Others will be riding and racing in a country where it's 40 degrees and blazing sunshine and the air conditioning is on. So I do enjoy looking at their pain cave setups just to give us an idea and a flavour of where our riders are located around the world and the types of setups they've got and the locations of those setups, just to give us a flavour of what's going on in people's lives and bike racing windows.
Yep, definitely. Always good to see where people are racing around that world. And remember, we've got riders from all over, from the European area, from the Oceania area, so around Australia. We've got people in Asia, we've got people in the Middle East, we've got people in Australia, people in all over. And everyone raced in on different time zones. So for some of our riders, it's early in the morning. Some of our riders, it's late in the day. And looks like somebody who's definitely had the Weetabix for breakfast. It's Julie Sanchez, who's going on the attack here. One of our Category 2 riders, and always one of our strong Category 2 riders, races right up at the top end of that category, Emma, doesn't she?
She does indeed, and she's a regular podium rider in category 2. But I think she's thinking that 30 riders in that lead group, which is pretty much what there still is at the moment after 5 kilometres of racing today, is too many. And someone has to make a push off the front, and Julie Sanchez has indeed done that as we were going up climb 3 on lap 1. So as we start to go down the other side of climb 3, we will very quickly transition into climb 4, and Sanchez really is fed up with waiting now, I think, as Sanchez moves on. But there is very little response from the group. This is very early in this race. We are 5 kilometres into a 35.6 kilometre race, and that group behind that Sanchez has pushed on from really don't feel the need to chase at the moment. This is going to be a really active race, I think. And while Sanchez is thinking it's not active enough at the moment, the group behind really seem to be quite content just to sit and wait.
I think I'll be in that group. I don't know about you, Emma. The suicidal move off the front. I mean, somebody always goes on the hunt for glory on a road race. You often see an early breakaway on the track, but I think I'll be sat in this group. I mean, Lania Cinelli, a rider whose story is really interesting on social media, has been featured on the MyWhoosh social media as well. Great to see her in this group. And you just start to see these little bit of splits as the pace picks up and it drops down. The riders have got to stay attentive here because there's always the chance somebody will go in pursuit of that lone leader, in which case that then gets very, very difficult.
Yeah, this is such a big group, and it's hard to keep your eye on the whole group when you're in that pack and when you're racing. And you're right, Matt. You know, we've seen Sanchez just push on and push off the front there. In fact, she's just in the eyesight of that leading group. So Sanchez on the right-hand side of your screen, the chasing group. We're in with Quevedo on the left-hand side of your screen. And you can just see, I think, the back wheel of Sanchez as we can see that group push through. No big response coming, but it is difficult because if one or two riders go up the road and join Sanchez, then it's a group of three. A group of three is very different to a lone rider going down the road. You've got the support there, and you've got ability to through and off and technically do a team time trial to the finish, which is a lot stronger than a lone rider. But it's really interesting. You know, we are still on lap 1 of a 4-lap race. We are coming into the final climb. Our riders are on. You can see with the gradient going up to 6.1% there. The riders are on this final climb of lap 1. There are 3 more climbs to go. 3 more laps to go. 12 more climbs. Let me get that right, because 3 more climbs would make this a much more straightforward race than it's going to be. With Sanchez out the front, the group chasing, the gap at around 10 seconds. You know, Quevedo here is putting out a strong power output as we push and punch up this climb. And I think ultimately it is going to be a puncher's climb. It's not an endurance race. It is a real punchy on-off, on-off, on-off race that we're going to see today.
It is, and always interesting when we have that lone attack. You have somebody going on the attack, and then what happens when it comes back? Because if it comes back, who's going to go on the counter attack? Who wants it? And this is where, if I'm racing this, I'm thinking about what's everybody else thinking. What do they want? Who wants the most out of this? Where are they going to go? Who's going to show the hand early? Maybe they're going to put a teammate in pursuit. And if we take a look at the right-hand side and left-hand side of the screen, you got 2 very different races going on. Left-hand side of the screen, that's the front of that pack. They're thinking about the race and racing on. The riders behind, they are just concentrating on getting back in touch, and they need to do that really, really quickly, because we see it time and time again. Once the gap's open, then the riders are in trouble.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? We say once the gap is open, Sanchez isn't being brought back at the moment, and this group are taking a bit of recovery here. You know, the gradient is at around 3%. We're going uphill at the moment. This is the rolling section before we get to the finish of lap 1. Sanchez is still out with around a 10-second lead. You can just see her when the shot gives us enough of a panning and a straight road in front of this group. At the moment, we can't see her. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because when you can't see a rider who's gone down the road, you're not as attentive to the breakaway as sometimes you should be, Matt.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also that outside our mind, isn't it? The rider goes off down the road, and you just like thinking, oh, hang on a minute, why? So somebody's gone off. How far back am I going to go? Am I going to go, you know? And then they disappear, and you kind of like then think about the people around you. You lose track. I definitely lose track if somebody goes off down the road, and I have relied on that in the past when I've been away on the road in a breakaway. And I've definitely relied on the fact that if I go hard and get a gap, then people are not going to see me in there. And when I've been away in like a group of 3, 4, 5 riders, we've got far more than we probably deserve to get up to the front and get away and get clear. And if you do it reasonably early, it takes a long time for them to come back to you, and you can sit at your own pace. And also, I think for me, you're not responding to a lot of riders. So Sanchez is going to sit there and time trial where she's comfy. The guys in the back here, they're responding to not just 2, 3, 4 riders, they're responding to the pace changes of maybe 20, 30 riders. I can't even work out how many is that could be so big at the moment.
You're right, Matt. You know, Sanchez will know her numbers. She will know exactly where she can sit at and what heart rate she can sit at for how long, whether that be 1 minute, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour. She'll know exactly her limits, and she'll know exactly what she can tick out. effort-wise, and she'll know how to manage that and stay within it. At the moment, it is completely within her control. She's not having to respond to anybody in a group. She's not having to respond to attacks. She is the one making the attack, and it is managed and within her control. So it is going to be really interesting. She's taken that 10-second gap out to about 12 seconds now, and they are coming through. In fact, Sanchez now, as she sweeps around this left-hand corner, is seeing the lap banner with 3 laps to go. So Sanchez now has completed lap 1 and takes that banner into lap 2 with a 10-second lead. As we're watching now, the group come behind her in with Brommel on the front of that pack, and Brommel now pushing on as we're starting to see 4-5 watts per kilo come from that group behind. This finish banner, the lap banner, and what will be the finish banner on lap 4 is actually an uphill finish, which is the start of climb 1 on the lap. So we are now moving into what is climb 5 for these women in this race. And as we can start to see, Sanchez may now only be just round this bend in front of this group, as the front pack of these riders, led by Van Hoolen, has really now put some power down on this climb to wheel Sanchez in.
So here on MyWhoosh on Sunday Race Club, our riders are reeling in our solo breakaway, and now's the moment. This is where I would be pushing. We're right on the top of the climb, so if you push over the top, riders behind are going to get distance. Push over the top, you can put a lot of pressure on with relatively little effort going over the top, but we've just seen a chase down as well, and this is where it's going to be interesting to see, can our Category 2 stay with Category 1? I think the Category 1, the point that they are sitting far more comfortably is reflected in those watts per kilo, in their heart rates. Quevedo is one of our class act riders, and I think she's really, really at a point where she's sitting comfortably. The same with all of this group, realistically. And that helicopter shot really does show that bunch is still a bunch. It's not a long, thin line. It's something we always look at if I'm lucky enough to be on the mic, whether it's at the Mountain Bike World Championships or whether it's at a road race, whether it's at the crit, the track, the cyclocross race, of course, on esports on MyWhoosh. Long, thin lines, the pressure's on. Big, fat bunch, yeah, they're taking it a little bit easier. There's going to be a bit of chatting going on.
Yeah, there is a fabulous blob at the front of this race, shall we say, that's a brightly coloured blob with yellow jerseys and green jerseys, as these riders are sitting comfortably, at around 3.5 watts per kilo. I'm keeping an eye on the heart rates and the data and information that's on the top left-hand corner of the screen as we jump in with these riders. And we've seen heart rates. We saw Rebecca Gilson's heart rate the other day when she was chasing really hard, I think 2 weeks ago, top out at 207 before she blew and she popped. These riders at the moment, this is really comfortable pacing for them. Alessia Antico we're in at the moment, her heart rate is currently 139, and whilst a lot of these riders won't have the range of Gilson to go to 207, the riders and their ranges at the moment, this is just indicating that this is a very comfortable pace for most of these riders in this group at the moment.
So as our riders come through, Emma, I'm looking at this, wondering who's going to go on. I said this before on the coverage, and don't forget, of course, you can jump on to the YouTube coverage and play back all of the previous streams. I always think big groups, too many to take into the finish. You can't afford to leave it. I generally would think in my head, generally about every quarter race distance, you can half it. That's kind of the numbers in my head when I've been sitting there. So if you've got 50 to start off with, you want to try and get it down to 25 at the end of lap 1, down to 15 at the end of lap 2. By the end of lap 3, you maybe want to be on 7. That makes a big difference. You need to get rid of those riders. And one rider who I wouldn't expect to see disappearing, Chiara Donny here on the right-hand side of our screen.
Yeah, so we are in with Chiara Donny at the moment, who's currently 35th out of the 62 riders who's took to the start line today. You're quite right, Matt. We wouldn't normally see Donny this far down the field, but let's just remember, these riders are racing week in, week out and have different training programs and different schedules. whilst there is an individual race in each of the qualifiers with prize money for the top 5 in each category, a lot of these riders, and Donnie perhaps today is on a qualification ride. She's looking for a verified result to qualify for the finals at the end of the month, which obviously is then an individual and a team race. So we will see riders. I don't want to use the phrase. I didn't want to use the phrase "take an easier ride," but actually use the race for a different reason. They're using it to qualify rather than to actually get a race position.
Well, that is, I think that's more the case with the Category 1 riders. I think if you are a Category 2 or 3 rider, I think often the mentality is, I'm going to ride and enjoy it. And certainly, I think it's less cynical racing. It's one of the reasons I love commentating on races for things like under 16, under 14, under 18 categories. They're less cynical, let's face it, because they're just in it because they love racing. And, I was never good enough to be right up at the very, very front on the top races. And I love the racing. Don't ask me to train, ask me to race. And that's what I love about MyWhoosh. I can go out and race myself fit on there. And that's something that I think it works for me. But if you are wanting a training program, there are masses of training programs on MyWhoosh, and they are designed to do specific things. And Emma is the science and stats person realistically on the Full Speed Events team. And when you jump on that MyWhoosh training plan site, Emma, you must look at that and think, fantastic. You can really get some real specific plans off here.
You can, there are over 720 training sessions on there. It's about thinking about, what it is you want to do and what training plan best suits you, whether you're looking to be a time trialer, whether you're looking to improve your 1-minute power, which would absolutely benefit you on today's course, or whether you're looking to improve your 20-minute power. You can train your strengths. You can also train your weaknesses. Now, I love riding long distance. I hate the short, sharp, punchy stuff, but that's what I need to work on, because actually my 15-second and my 1-minute power need a lot more training than my 20-minute, 60-minute or 90-minute power. You can change, you can play around with things, and you need to train the things that you're looking for, and identifying those areas, and then building your training program or utilizing a training program to do that and using the sessions to do that is perfectly possible. So we are back here with Van Hooling at the moment in what is still a really large group, as we have 13 kilometres now covered in this race. These riders now are looking at coming up to this bridge here. This bridge signifies climb number 7 of 16 climbs on this course today. Climb number 7 is 800 metres in length with an average gradient of 3%. We can see at the moment we've got a steeper kick here as we top 5% now coming up onto this bridge as we take this sweeping left-hand bend on this climb. You can see on the course map in front of you, the climb these riders are on at the moment is indeed the 3rd climb on this map. They go up this climb, they drop down, and immediately then to start to climb the 4th climb on this lap. This is a constantly climbing and descending course. It's a really punchy course, and we are seeing here this group now really kicking out some power on this climb.
So just watching that power there, Emma, and I'm looking at these riders coming up and through. A number of the riders in those green jerseys who we know are strong are able to match the power, but we're seeing more and more riders. The back of this group is where that pressure is starting to take effect, where riders are either going over their power limit or struggling to stay on. And I think really interesting, behind this group, we're talking over a minute. So people like Ursula Bardowskaya, very strong rider, but I think she's had a heavy race program this week.
Yeah, I think so too, Matt, because this is about tired legs. This will be. This is like a race of attrition. You know, each time you pick up the power and drop it off, it's going to take a little bit more lactic acid in the legs. And those fresher riders are going to fatigue slower than the riders who are currently in a heavy race program. And you're right, Bardeskaya has been racing this week and racing hard. So it looks as though it is a little telling now, because that is indeed, she's now dropped off of this group, which is still, look at this. This is still a really big group as we go into towards the end of lap 2. So we are nearly half race distance, and we still have a very large group of what looks to be, I'm looking, still over 20 riders.
I'm thinking it's nearer 30. I'm trying to count as fast as these riders roll through, but I would put money that we are pretty close to 30 riders in there. And we're seeing some of the riders a long way off the back and being distanced a fair old distance back. And that gap, it does open, and it shows why it's so important to be in that leading group, to get that acceleration off the line right, to make sure that you get that kick in. But now that we're approaching 25 minutes, you've also got to be thinking about hydration. You've got to be thinking about fluids. So the key things, obviously, is making sure you know how much you have to drink. So here, hitting 25 minutes, if I was in at the race by now, I would know that I'd need to be getting towards the end of the first half a bottle. So about half a bottle, 250 ml for me. At this stage in the racing should have disappeared. I know that I need to do generally about a bottle an hour if I'm in general racing, general riding. If it's a really warm environment, so my pancake turns into an oven, I could go even more. So you might be talking about going up. I could be talking about putting down something almost double that, but it just depends. And the easy way to do it for the riders actually is to jump on the scales before and after racing. And generally, any weight you lose in that race is going to be fluid loss. It's going to be the thing that you lose, and that's what you need to put in, but you need to put the minerals in, and that hydration and the fueling now starts to take effect. You can blag it, you can get away with it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, but our rider's going to be racing for an hour, and you cannot blag that. You've got to be able to fuel up right. If you don't, you're going to be in big trouble. Something that I've done regularly. I'm not sure about you, Emma. How often have you managed to get the fueling strategy, the hydration strategy wrong?
Well, that's a good question, Matt. Often I go the wrong way, purely because I've come to esports racing, which tends to be around the hour mark, from long distance endurance running and racing. So normally, historically, 4 to 6 hours out on a bike or on a pair of legs. When I first moved to esports racing, I would be more like the other way around, and I would be drinking far too much for the hours worth of racing. So getting your balance each way is really important. But I'm probably pretty much with you. I would normally, within an hour, like you say, a bottle, maybe a bit of energy drink in that bottle as well, just to keep the fuel going for the fast finishes is really important. But anything over an hour, I would then also be looking at something to eat as well, particularly outdoors. But it is really interesting, as we are now 16 kilometres travelled in this race. We are over climb number 8, and we are moving forward to the lap banner, which will give us an indication that we will have 2 laps to go in a 4-lap race. So we are nearly half distance now in this race, but we still have a really large group. And other than that attack from Sanchez, which we saw in lap 1, we are not seeing any attacks go off the front, and we are not seeing any really big efforts to break this group. It's rolling around. As you said, Matt, we've still got nearly 30 riders, I think, in this group. When do you think the action's going to come? What would you do? What would your tactics be if you were in a group this large?
Oh, most definitely. Every time that I saw the riders drop below about 3 watts per kilo, so if that group went below 3 watts per kilo, I'd be behind the group, and I would come through at about, well, absolutely flat out. That's going to depend on, what sort of rider you are. Go through flat out, get about 5 seconds down the road, aim then that what you're going to get is 2 or 3 people come across. If you don't see anybody move out the bunch, sit up, go back in. and just do that time and time and time again. Because by doing that, you are going to cause people at the back to struggle. You're going to be able to start to animate people. Okay, you're going to set your intentions out that you want to go win the race. But to be honest, most people who've ever ridden with me will know I will sprint for any sign on the road. It can be a no entry sign, it can be a town sign, a village sign, a bridge sign, or a river sign. It's not like people don't know that. And we've got riders like that. I mean, you get Rebecca Gilson, she's going to be on the front on the climb. She's going to constantly attack. You get Jojo Bauer, she's going to sprint to the finish. These riders know each other a bit like most people who I go riding with now. So if I was in this, I would be attacking all the time. And probably the one place I wouldn't attack and wouldn't show my hand would be the run into the finish. I would be saving the run from the last climb down into the start finish line every time, and I wouldn't show my hand there at all.
Yeah, so as you are talking there, Matt, you're talking about the finish, and these riders are going to come round this sweeping left-hand bend and see sight of that lap banner shortly. That lap banner is going to read 2 laps to go and half race distance for this group. So we are currently in with Alessia Antico, one of our strong category 2 riders. Antico very normally up there. In fact, with our September final, Antico took second to Jenny Sanchez. So our strong category 2 riders that we are expecting to be up here in this race today are within this large group as 24 riders go through this banner with 2 laps to go.
So our riders onto that climb, 2 laps to go, half race distance, and pacing, timing, going to be critical as you come through here. I think, Emma, for me, it's about knowing how much is left, how much. I always think you should race until when you go over the line, you fall over in a very big heap, and somebody's got to scrape you up with a shovel. If you haven't raced that hard, what were you doing? You weren't racing. That's probably not the wisest tactic, but it's certainly. I would want to be reaching that stage, but that means you've got to know what's left because you don't want to save too much. But equally, if you do that too early, you look a real donkey doing it and then blowing up a lap from the finish, says the man from great experience.
So we are in with Elizabeth Van Hoolen at the front of this pack of what was 24 riders who went through the lap banner last time. This is lap 3 of a 4-lap race. As we are pushing up over the first climb of this lap, we will soon be dropping down the other side as these riders carry on through this race. This group is not breaking up, though. No one is really taking it apart and no one is really pushing on. And I'm a bit concerned, Matt. Well, I'm not yet, but I could be concerned soon that they're going to start running out of road.
Well, yeah, that's that's it. It's you've that constant attack. One of the reasons to start it early is because if you start it early, you should those riders. You know that you've done it and it's done in time. If you start too late, you run out of road to do that. You could pull this group all the way to the finish, and it gives that chance. A category 2 rider who maybe can't stay with that sustained power for, let's say, a 2K climb or a repeated 1K set of attacks, or putting the pace down when the pace is hot, and maybe can't ride at that flat out speed for more than a minute, maybe has the biggest kick in the world and can sprint those last 200 meters. And if you take that rider and they survive to the finish, there's always somebody who's got a little bit more in the legs. They could have something in there that you didn't realize. And if that happens, then that is going to be really, really difficult because, you've left it and that rider sprints around you. It's all over. There's no dress rehearsals. It comes down to the end. And the sooner you get rid of people, the better. This climb for me, absolutely key. I would be putting a proper dig in on this one, Emma.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? If I look at some of the numbers that these riders have kicked out before and we've seen in these races, Van Hoolen has an outstanding 15-second power. We've seen her, 10, 11, 12, 13 watts per kilo for 15 seconds, Van Hoolen. Absolutely outstanding. But when we look at some of our other riders, Faye Faber's not with us today because of that outstanding age category world win at the Gran Fondo time trial in Italy a couple of weeks ago. But Faber, much more time trialer, much stronger over those longer distances. 15 seconds, around 9.5 watts per kilo we would expect to see from her previously. Big differences over a short time, but different courses suit different riders with their different strengths and different abilities. At the moment, this type of riding and this type of pace, you're right, Matt, are riders who don't have that stronger ability over the longer distances and may well get dropped very quickly from this group on a 20-minute climb, actually are able to use the ability to draft. Currently we're watching Van Hoolen, 1.3, 2 watts per kilo. This is recovery in this group, and real recovery, and these category 2 riders are using that recovery. Look at that, Antico, Sinelli, 2 watts per kilo in this group. They are really able to recover and really able to stay in the category 1 riders space in this large group because of it. Really sensible riding.
And I always love to watch smart riders race, because they are the riders who are keeping an eye on the ones who are making sure that they get the position, that they get the draft, that you don't do too much work. That it doesn't matter. Somebody once said to me, it doesn't matter how many times you go on the front. The only time that actually matters is that you're on the front at the finish. Rest of it is
it is so true.
immaterial whether you're in the front or not.
Yeah, the only time to stick your head out of the bunch is when the bunch crosses the finish line. The challenge is if the bunch doesn't take you to the finish line and you've missed the action off of the front. So,
well, that's definitely
been
very easy to do. I've done that a few times, I must admit, but I think it's this gamble, isn't it? It's running out of road. We're at 35 minutes. We're at 20k cover. We've got 35.6k to do in total. So we are well over half race distance here on MyWhoosh. And the riders in category 1 are all recovering at this pace, I would imagine. However, that doesn't mean everybody is, because of course further back through that race field, they're not going to be able to do that, because when you start off, your heart rate is going to go through the roof just riding at 10k an hour, not 40k an hour. It's going to be right up there. The power that you can put out might be 1 watt per kilo, 1.5 watts per kilo, 2 watts per kilo might be your limit. And obviously, if these guys are riding around at 3 watts per kilo, it's game over. But it does mean finding that bunch and hiding works, and it works for everybody as well.
Yeah, it does. And let's give this group its due, Matt. It is 4 minutes back now to the chasing group behind this group. So it may be a large group of 24 riders, but they have 4 minutes on the riders behind. So they are, whilst we say this is a comfy pace for them and there is the ability to draft and use tactics and to think about what you're doing and ride smart, they are still motoring. I'm looking at the left-hand corner of the screen at the top, 37, 38 kilometers per hour these riders are traveling at in these group at the moment. And currently we're about to kick onto a climb. So at 21.7 kilometers traveled, we are now moving on to the 11th climb of this race. The pack are moving well and they're moving fast, and that is really indicated by the gaps back to the riders behind.
Definitely. The racing well underway here. This is, of course, qualifier number 1 of October. It is our first qualifier of the month. Our riders well on this course out and round Bahrain. Don't forget, of course, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can click on there, get all those videos, get notified when we go live. Not just ourselves, of course, but Jeff with all of the videos in there. Don't forget, of course, you can catch up with me. It's Matt Fixer Paint on Facebook, on MyWhoosh, on Strava as well. And, of course, you can catch up with Emma on social media too. Emma, your social media is even better than mine.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Biking Emma. You can find me on Facebook as well. And of course, you can always message us or find us on the Full Speed events pages. Matt, I'm also thinking, if people are watching this today and thinking, how on earth do I have a go at this? How do I join? This looks like a really good fun thing to do on a Sunday. What do they need to do?
really easy. It's dead easy. Jump on to www.mywhoosh.com. Download the app, get it on there, whether it's iOS, Android, or PC system. Get it down on there on a Windows system. Download it, jump on board, make sure that you go enjoy it, number one. Number two, then jump onto the events page, have a look at the rides that are going off and see whether or not you want to go on a ride, on a race. Look at the training programs. There's something on there for everybody. Even better, make sure you go onto the Facebook page, go to the Facebook page for the MyWhoosh Indoor Cycling and put your questions in there. There's a whole host of people on there. I mean, with people like the head of product, with people like Kevin Poulton on there, Matt Smithson's on there, one of our key coaches on there, as well as loads of the tech guys, and everybody is there to make your life easier and to really make you jump on. But I have to say, irrespective of all the tech and getting the race manual, making sure that you comply with all the rules, jump on and enjoy it because it is great fun and it doesn't make any difference whether you want to stay out of the weather, whether that's scorching hot or scorching cold, or whether you actually want to be on board and get something that is convenient. You know, I can jump out of the studio here, I can run upstairs, pull on a set of cycling shots, jump onto the bike, and I can be out and racing and riding in minutes. And same on the other end. There's none of this pulling on the kit. I mean, here in the UK, it's wet, it's cold. I was out during the week and had to come back. First thing was all the dirty kit in the washing machine. Second thing, wash the bike down. There's none of that going on. So much simpler. So jump on board, make sure you have a go because having a go is key. But once you've had a go, then learn the platform because how it rides, how it feels, how you modulate your power, how you jump on, the more you ride, the more you realize that there's more to learn on there to get the maximum amount of what you're doing. And for me, that is really key.
It is indeed. And if you are interested in racing the Sunday Race Club, as Matt indicates, log on to to the website, hit the events pages. You will need to register at least 12 hours before the event. You need to read the tech guide, the rule set, look at the requirements, because you do need to get a verified ride. And to get a verified ride, you need to submit a weigh-in video 12 to 48 hours before the event, and you need to submit a dual recording as well after the event. So do log on, do look at the tech guide, and do look at the rule set where everything is explained to you in great detail so that you can get a verified ride and compete in the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. So we are here on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. We are in with this lead pack in the women's race. We are 24.2 kilometres travelled in a 35.6 kilometre race. And these riders are coming up at the moment to the top of what is climb number 12. Yes, climb number 12 of a 16 climb race. They are on lap 3. We've got 24 riders still in this lead group as we come to the final climb of lap 3. We are going to go out, I think, Matt, with a large group onto our final lap.
I wouldn't disagree with that. We're going out with way too big a group for me. If I was racing, I'd be like, okay, this is going to be entertaining. But we say that it isn't any longer a group of 30. I think we've just been seeing just like a dot to dot off the bike end, but it is still got to be, I reckon, 25 riders, 21, 2, 3, 4, probably 24 riders in this group.
4, I reckon.
Oh, do you know what? We actually agreed on something racing. Mega. So 24 riders out on the course at the moment. And of those 24 riders on course in the leading group, it's about 50-50 split between our green riders. They're the riders in the second category and our yellow jerseys in that first category. And they are separated out in the groups essentially by power. It's all about power and weight and the power that they can get down and the speed that they can put that out. The categories are dynamic. They've moved. And Emma, we've seen quite a change. We've seen riders going up and down, haven't we? I've been really pleased to see the progress our riders have made, moving up from, say, category 2 to category 1 or category 3 to category 2.
Yeah, so for example, Oliveri, Matt, this week is riding Category 1. She's been one of our exceptionally strong Category 2 riders, regularly up in the top 5 in those races. So it's fantastic to see our riders progress, and that the dynamics between Category 1, Category 2, and Category 3 work with our riders as they become stronger, moving up and moving down, should they be taking time off the bike and coming back to it. And I think that's one of the joys of these sort of fluid groups, is as you progress and get stronger, the teams and the individual riders move and flex with it. So fabulous to see that at work with Oliveri moving up, and congratulations to her, because that's fantastic achievement to move from Category 2 to Category 1, and it's going to be really interesting to see what she can do in that Category 1 position.
Indeed, definitely, and I think well deserved. She's been such a strong rider, and we know she can mix it up with them. So as we come in to the final running for the finish for the penultimate time, this is the last chance to get to have a look at this line before they'll be coming back in and through on our finish proper. The climb will kick in very shortly, and remember, this is all about power, pace, speed, draft. It's about being smart. It's about using the tactics right, but it's about being an amazing athlete. And we've got some great riders on MyWhoosh. Thank you, everybody who's riding. You make certainly my job and Emma's much easier watching these riders out and racing. And definitely great to see what you do. Don't forget, if you want to get in touch, give Emma a message. Tell her about your team. Tell her about your setup. If you're riding for a good cause, if you're riding on the comeback, if you're going to be a brand new rider heading out in your career, we want to know about it. Make sure you get in touch, and Emma, the rider to get in touch with. Now, one lap to go here on MyWhoosh. Once more around this circuit here in Bahrain on the Sunday Race Club. Big pack of riders, lots of firepower that has been stored up. Are we going to see fireworks at the end?
Yeah, so as we go out onto the final lap, the first climb and the final lap, we have gone from 27 riders in this group at the end of lap 1 to 24 riders at lap 3 to 23 riders going out onto lap 4. This group has not really changed. It is still a really large group. We have 8.9 kilometers of racing left, 4 climbs, and I can't wait to see what happens as we come up and over this bridge. We're going to turn and drop, as you can see, on the other side. Then we've got 3 laps to go, and then a sprint to the finish line.
Wow, this is going to be exciting stuff, and I think fireworks, once we hit that run in, who's going to take it out? Who is going to be victorious here today on qualifier number 1? Our riders are putting in their pace, putting in that time, making sure that they have a chance of staying in touch. And this, for me, is going to be a cracking lap. Emma, you've got to be looking forward to this.
I am. It is going to be absolutely outstanding. I think this is going to be around 8 kilometers of amazing racing. Not that I'm really hoping and wishing and sending those vibes through the ether to these riders all around the world, but I really am at the moment. As we're in with Van Hooling really pushing on, one of our stronger riders. She's got some outstanding kick, but as we mentioned earlier, we just don't know what these riders have been doing over the last week, what their race schedules are like, and who's on form. But it's going to be really telling over the last few kilometers of this race, because this is still a large group, and I'm looking at this and I think slowly the tail is growing by the look of the screen in front of me. But the blob is still really large, and it's still moving well together. It's still a mix of yellow and green jerseys, and they're all riding really well today. So as we're dropping down off the other side of this climb, we are moving now in the transition between climb 13 and climb 14. You know, they just keep coming, these climbs today, as we start to see the gradient change again. The gradient is now changing as these riders move on to climb 14 out of 16. And as we drop back, we can see Bardaskaya in here with another category 1 rider, and actually the gaps back are really telling. You know, taking a look at that, they are now 3 kilometers behind this lead group. Right, and in positions 26 and 27. We talked about this group being 26, dropping to 24, dropping to 23. They are still going really strong, and they are still working really hard, and they have put in a massive gap and have rolled really well on this group. We drop back in with this lead group on this last lap of the Sunday Race Club as they push up to the top of this climb. The gradient is topping now at 6%, and we are starting to see strong climbing here in this group for our riders. But we are also starting to see some of the category 2 riders at the back of this group possibly start to come under a little bit of pressure as a gap starts to grow from these 3 riders here to the riders in front. It's not a big gap, it's 3 or 4 seconds as we see what I think is Brogan push on there to close that gap. That category 1 rider getting caught out, sat napping a little bit there, really needs to be smart and really needs to be focused and watching, because we don't have much longer now as we move into the latter stages of this race today. So Gemma Brogan joins the back of that group to make it a group of 21 riders, with a small gap back now to some of our category 2 riders. Kekkonen just off the back of that group as we transition onto the downhill between climb number 14 and climb number 15. They come in quick succession, and it won't be long until they start to see a positive gradient again. So looking back here, we can see we've got one category 2 rider off the back of this group, but not much damage is being done to this group as we come through with 29.4, 29.5 kilometers traveled in this race today. We are finishing at 35.6 kilometers. So these riders now, this is a large group. We've got 21 riders at last count still in this group to go. But no real attacks coming as we see Bromwell try and push there at around 5 watts per kilo, but there's no real action coming forward as a comfortable pace is still set, transitioning between these climbs. Realistically, if we don't see attacks in the next couple of climbs, this is going to be 22 riders going in to a sprint finish, something we've not seen for a very long time. So as we take this sweeping left-hand bend, we have a group of 21 riders at the front of the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club today. We are on the Bahrain course. It's a challenging course, 16 short, steep climbs across 4 laps of racing. And you can see this in front of you. We have the last 2 climbs to go before the run into the finish, which is not flat. So from the top of the final climb today, there is a 2.1 kilometer run into the finish line. The riders will go downhill, they go uphill, they go downhill. There's a short flat section before the final uphill sprint into the finish line today. And it's looking like we are going to see a sprint today unless we see something dramatic in the next 5 kilometers of racing, because that is all that is left with 22 riders now in this lead group. So we're seeing Brogan yo-yo a little bit off the back there. She's dropped off and she's come back on. She's dropped off and she's come back on. And the pace is allowing her to do that with no one really pushing on at the moment from the front. So as Brogan sweeps the back of that group, we are seeing the front move, and we've got Brogan there actually just struggling a little bit as we're seeing Oliveri now, absolutely a new category 1 rider, showing what she's made of as she's made this transition from category 2 to category 1 and proving why she was worth it as she moves on at 7 watts per kilo now, trying to stretch this group out, thinking 4.6 kilometers to go is just not enough if you're taking a group of 21 riders to the finish line. So Oliveri is joined by Van Hooling, Bjarhead, Brommel and Fur, as the group really now start to push. We can start to see some damage and some stretch being done to this group. We are on climb number 15 now out of 16, so 2 climbs left to go as they move up over this bridge and they transition into this area. Brogan now being dropped from this group. She's 3 seconds back, so we're now seeing 19 riders in this lead group. So the group haven't settled. They are still pushing on this climb. Van Hooling, Sanchez, Sinelli, Reynald, all still in this group with Quevedo and Fur, Brommel and Biarhead. Oliveri made a little bit of a dig there, but actually has been brought back, and this group are now all back together again as we go over the top of this climb and the riders start to drop down the other side of climb 15. So Brogan now pushing on to get onto the back of that group again. She's been dropped, she's pushed on, she's been dropped, she's pushed on. She's absolutely adamant she's staying in that group as long as possible as Brogan catches the back of that group and makes it a group of 19. So 19 riders taking this right-hand bend on the bridge before the left hand as we continue to drop down between climb number 15 and climb number 16 on this 35.6 kilometre course that these women are racing on today. This Bahrain route is indeed and has been a real challenge. It has not broken the group. The group have stayed together. The ups, the downs, the rests, the recoveries, the group have stayed. We saw 27 riders go over as a group at the end of lap 1. At the end of lap 2, 24 riders remained. 24 riders went over the line from lap 3 into lap 4, and 23 riders after the first climb this lap. We now see 19 riders with Brogan still at the back of this grap as Oliveri seems to have decided she still wants to push on, but no, Ortiz is coming through. Quevedo, Sanchez, Biarhead, Van Hoolen, all at the front of this group as we start to move into what is the final climb of this course today. So as we are on the final climb now, 700 metres, an average gradient of 2.5%. So it is not a steep climb. It is just a small bump, and something is going to have to really make some action here if they are going to break this group between now and the finish. There is very little chance after this climb to actually really shake this group apart. So who is going to push on? Who is going to stay in this group? Or are they just going to be happy taking it through to the finish and having a sprint? So Julie Sanchez comes to the front again, our Category 2 rider who took it out on lap 1. She really wasn't happy on lap 1 with 26 riders in a group, and she pushed on. Biarhead and Marin and Brommel and Oliveri. Van Hoolen are pushing too and really trying to push on at the front here. But we're not seeing megawatts from them. We're seeing strong climbing, but just strong climbing. Nothing that is going to break this group or be extraordinary. So I'm not thinking this group is going to split. We are at 33.3 kilometres, and Biarhead has pushed to the front again with Sinelli and Sanchez and Brommel and Van Hoolen. But the rest of the group are responding, and it is not doing much damage to this group of 19 riders. So as the camera sweeps behind, we've got a really great shot there, and we can see the fact that this group are all still together. I'm wondering whether that's Brogan just with the elastic off the back snapping again, but she'll come back because that's not a huge gap as the riders go over the top of that climb and start to descend. We are looking at around 54 kilometres per hour from this group, as this group now have running into what is going to be the finish. This is not a constant downhill or a flat run into the finish from the top of this climb, but it is rolling. They will roll down, a small uphill section, another downhill section, a short flat section before they start to kick for the climb, which is where they will see the finish line. So with 34.1 kilometres travelled on this 35.6 kilometre race, we are in with Anna Embring. Embring pushing in this large group of strong riders. We've seen a group of 19 riders come off the final climb of this race together. With only 2.1 kilometers to the finish from the top of that climb, this group are all still together. No one is pushing out, and no one seems to be going for a long run to the finish line with 1.3 kilometers left to go. This really could be anybody's race from this group of 19 women. So the Category 2 riders in this leading group, they have worked so hard with these Category 1 riders to still be in this lead group as they come within 1 kilometre now of the finish. We are starting to see lapped riders in front of this group as they start to push on, but we start to see these strong Category 2 women in there as Ortez starts to come to the front with Brommel, but we've still got riders in here with the road starting to run out. So 19 riders in this lead group, and we've got 700 metres of racing left as we start to see Ortez, Brogan come to the front, Oliveri, Fua, Marin, riders starting to come, but we are now starting to run out of road. 400 metres coming, 400 metres coming to the finish line here as Marin and Zabata, Oliveri, Gaviria, Brogan, Brommel, Garioni, Sanchez. This group is still so large, and it's a big sweeping left-hand bend into that finish line. It's such a sweeping left-hand bend that they do not see the finish banner until they are nearly on it as Ortez pushes. Quevedo goes at 10 watts per kilo. Brogan is pushing as well. Van Hoolen is moving through now at 11.2. We've got Bjarhead, Marin at 17. Wow! What a finish. I can't believe that. That was Quevedo who took that from Marin, from Ortez, from Van Hoolen. Those numbers seemed to come out of nowhere, and that finish line just hit them as they turned that corner. So, what a race. There was 19 riders going into that finish line together, and boy, was that a sprint. So, what did we see? Quevedo took that from Marin, from Ortez, from Van Hooling. Julie Sanchez, who showed us her class on lap 1 when she tried to push that race on, takes the victory for our Category 2 from Martina Garioni. Bjarhead finishes in 7th. Oliveri, her first showing in Category 1, in 8th. Outstanding ride. And then Manshandi taking 9th. And Olsen, Morgane Olsen, Category 2 rider, rounding out the top 10. Absolutely outstanding riding today. And what a group. They took that down to the last 500 metres. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, so riders coming in thick and fast then, so it is running through really, really quickly. Not a problem whatsoever. Matt, what's your taking on that? Can you believe that those 19 riders went into that finish line together?
That is absolutely crazy, and I'm glad you were calling that, not me. That's all I could say. I think an amazing race, and what a great way to start October here on MyWhoosh on the Sunday Race Club. Emma, I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? So thank you for joining us on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club today for qualifier race number 1 in October. We will look forward to seeing you for qualifier race number 2 next Sunday. Outstanding riding from our women today. Can't wait to see what happens next week. Thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.